When this girl looks in the mirror, she is horrified to find a white worm in her eye socket. However, this isn't the weirdest part. Just as she is confused, she feels a wriggling sensation on her back. The story begins with a checkup in the small town of Sebring, Ohio, where a man feeling unwell arrives at the local hospital. He says he recently feels like something is squirming in his eye socket, especially when exposed to the sun. The squirming becomes more intense, accompanied by a burning sensation. After hearing his description, the doctor immediately examines the man. However, when the microscope magnifies the man's eye socket, the doctor sees a terrifying scene. Densely packed worms appear in the man's eye socket. The bugs have taken over his pupils and are scurrying around inside his body. Realizing something is wrong, the doctor immediately isolates the man. Through observation and research, doctors reach a terrible conclusion. The parasites inside the man are a type called red thread worms. These worms likely entered the human body through water sources or meat. Once parasitic, the human body becomes a home for the worms, where they breed frantically. Even more terrifying is that saliva and close contact can also lead to transmission. However, this isn't the most terrifying part. Once exposed to sunlight, the parasites become restless and try everything to leave the host's body. Discovering the special parasites in the town, the treating doctor reports the situation immediately. However, the health department inspection reveals that 95% of the town's residents are infected. To prevent the spread, the military seals off the entire town, trapping all residents. The authorities issue an emergency notice, broadcasting the dangers of the parasites. Although the parasites are terrifying, as long as they are not exposed to the sun, humans will be temporarily safe. To appease the public, the authorities promise all residents that experts are already studying a specific cure. As long as the cure is manufactured, all residents will be saved. But before the cure is successfully developed, no one can leave the town, nor can they be exposed to the sun. Although angry at the authorities, the residents are helpless. Everyone is forced into a nocturnal lifestyle, only going out after sunset. Time flies to a year later. The lockdown residents gradually move past their initial panic and restore their ordinary lives. However, just as residents anxiously await the cure, an accident happens again. This morning, because of playing, a boy named Tommy misses the time to go home. He fails to return before sunrise. As a result, worms exposed to the sun surge out of his body.
Tommy, get up! Tommy, get up!
Watching the tragically dead Tommy, his mother can only weep in sorrow at home. But are the parasites really just unable to handle sunlight? In an abandoned building in town, a girl walks out from a breach. Her name is Jess, one of the few uninfected humans in town. She lives with two friends in a dilapidated building far from town. Although far from the noise, food and supplies have become their headache. To find food, Jess goes to town every day. After wandering around the streets for a few laps, Jess finds some discarded bread in a bakery's trash can. Although a bit unclean, the bread is still good, so she takes out a bag to pack some. However, just as she prepares to leave, she accidentally encounters the tragically dead Tommy on the street. Tommy is surrounded by worms looking extremely creepy, but Jess is not afraid. Instead, she takes out tools to collect samples. She also carefully observes Tommy's condition. It turns out Jess has always suspected that the authorities might have deceived everyone. The parasites living on the human body are not simply absorbing nutrients. They might even eat the whole person. Just as Jess speculated, Tommy's internal organs had long been penetrated by worms. Even if he hadn't been exposed to the sun, he might have died suddenly soon after. The unexpected discovery makes Jess somewhat uneasy. However, just as she is about to investigate further, screams suddenly come from a nearby apartment.
You fucking animal! Leave him alone!
In the panic, Jess accidentally falls. Seeing Jess come into contact with Tommy's corpse, the woman upstairs reveals a horrified expression. Jess ignores this. She hurriedly turns and runs into a nearby alley. Meanwhile, at their residence, Rose is conducting research on the worms in the laboratory. After 2 months of observation, she discovers a terrifying thing. When these parasites first enter the body, there might be hundreds of thousands. But as the worms grow, their numbers decrease rapidly. When the worm grows to 1 centimeter, the number in the host drops by 95%. When the worm reaches 2 centimeters, the number drops to dozens. And when it reaches 3 centimeters, the number sharply decreases to only a few. Rose speculates that these dead worms might be killed by larger worms to seize territory and resources, which should be a mechanism of the worms. If a way can be found to make these worms kill each other, then humans can easily eliminate these parasites. Just as Rose is in the middle of research, Kara turns on the Bluetooth, and the worms in the petri dish vibrate along with it. Watching the wriggling worms, Rose thinks this is an opportunity. She asks Kara to increase the frequency to see if the worms still react. But just as she is about to continue research, Jess's screams come from outside. Rose looks back to find Jess running from the hallway, her face covered in blood. She hurriedly puts down her work and takes out alcohol for disinfection. However, just as she is halfway through cleaning Jess, she discovers a raised bump on Jess's back. The small bump is constantly squirming. Clearly, Jess has also been parasitized. Since Jess was exposed to the sun earlier, it accelerated the growth of the worms. Rose takes out a small knife and cuts open the squirming tumor. Discovering that Jess is infected, Kara's eyes are obviously somewhat indifferent. She leaves the building on the pretext of looking for supplies. Meanwhile, the sun has set, and the residents of the town begin to go out for activities. Walking on the street, Kara is somewhat worried. If Jess spreads the worms to them, they will also be infected. But Rose and Jess have a very good relationship, and Rose will never agree to drive Jess away. Just as Kara struggles with whether to leave the group, a police car drives towards her. It turned out that after seeing Jess walking outside during the day, Tommy's mother reported it to the police station. Learning that a resident can move during the day, Sheriff Elroy wants to find this person. Since Kara's hairstyle is somewhat similar to Jess's, Elroy mistakes her for Jess. Kara is taken to the police station just like that. Facing Elroy's questioning, Kara can only reveal that the person during the day was Jess. Learning that someone had direct contact with parasites and was even exposed to the sun, Elroy feels Jess is somewhat dangerous. If the swarm hatches in a certain place, the surrounding area will be contaminated. Elroy demands Kara take him to find Jess, ideally to bring her under control. Kara worries Elroy will hurt Jess, but Elroy repeatedly guarantees they will only control Jess. Naive Kara believes Elroy and takes him to the building. Meanwhile, Jess doesn't know she is being targeted. Although Rose helped Jess remove the parasite from her body, Jess can clearly feel the larvae swimming inside her. Jess worries she will be eaten by worms. However, Rose tells Jess not to worry. As long as she is not exposed to the sun, the larvae's growth will be very slow, and if the authorities can develop a cure, everyone can still be saved. But before Rose can finish speaking, Kara rushes in with Elroy. Elroy immediately controls Rose. Jess wants to stop it, but is blocked by Kara. But Elroy, having caught Rose, doesn't handcuff her. Instead, he throws her into the bathtub and pours all the worms Rose used for research into it. Finding a fresh host, the parasites swarm into Rose's body. Watching Rose being bitten by worms, Jess panics completely. She breaks free from Kara, picks up an iron rod in the corner, and accidentally beats Elroy to death. Kara also realizes she was deceived. She turns and runs to the hallway. By the time Jess chases after her, Kara has already taken the elevator. Helpless, Jess has to go back to find Rose. However, when she returns, she finds Rose is also missing. Jess searches everywhere and finally finds the despairing Rose at the door leading upstairs.
I can feel them jumping around and then they're digging.
She tries to persuade Rose to calm down, saying the authorities will definitely develop a cure. However, Rose, having been isolated for so long, no longer has hope in the authorities. She doesn't want to become nutrients for the worms. She asks Jess to take her horseshoe and go to the farm outside town to look for her family and not to tell them anything about her. Subsequently, without waiting for Jess to speak, the despairing Rose runs out. The moment she is exposed to the sun, the worms inside Rose become restless. She faints on the road, and the worms break out of her body. Breaking down, Jess can only watch Rose lose her life bit by bit. After Rose dies, Jess decides to leave town. She drives Elroy's car toward the farm in the countryside. Meanwhile, Kara, who had betrayed her friends, was taken in by Alice. She thought she would be safe if careful, but in the evening, Kara feels something squirming in her body while sleeping. She gets up in panic to check, only to find 2 scars appearing out of nowhere on her face. Just as Kara is confused, Alice's voice comes from the side. Alice tells her not to worry. This is the first stage of evolution, and she is lucky to become an evolved one. It turns out the reason Kara feels pain is that the worms are fighting for territory inside her body. Once most worms are killed, she won't feel pain anymore. The reason there are parasites in Kara's body is actually that Alice put them there. Alice did this to assimilate Kara. It turns out that with the passage of time, the town's residents no longer have hope. Mayor Joshua took the opportunity to establish an evil cult organization, asking residents to join. He describes parasitism as some kind of sacred evolution. Only by completing the worm's test can they become new humans. The sign of being assimilated is the appearance of scars on the face. Alice tells Kara not to worry. As long as she joins the sect, Mayor Joshua has a way to remove the worms from her body. To avoid becoming worm food, Kara helplessly agrees to join. Led by Alice, Kara arrives at the church, where several priests have been waiting for a long time. The leading priest takes out a bowl of blood containing worm eggs, and the priest smears the eggs on Kara's face. However, just after completing the ceremony, Kara feels the worms on her back squirming. Panicked, she goes to the bathroom to check. Just as she flips her eyelid, she sees a worm appearing in her eye socket. However, this isn't the worst part. Kara looks back to find an adult worm squirming on her back. Just as Kara is panicking, Alice appears beside her. She tells Kara this is a process. The real Worm King is not the one on her back, but the one in her brain. And the worm in the brain won't hurt her. Now, they just need to remove the other worms from the body. Alice takes Kara to the hospital, where the doctor has Kara lie on a special bed. Then the doctors attach current instruments to Kara's back. With the input of current, the worms in Kara's body feel threatened and start to surge out from various areas.
Anything from Mama?
Primary is calm, pulse is high but steady.
Shaking the tree.
5.
Without the parasite infestation, Kara feels physically relieved. She is soon taken to the mayor's office. However, when seeing the mayor, Kara is startled. The mayor has completely turned into a monster, his body covered in red scars. Because Elroy was killed by Rose, the police station needs a new replacement. Mayor Joshua takes out a badge wanting Kara to join. Although somewhat resistant, Kara cannot refuse. Just as Kara joins the church, Jess arrives at the suburban farm. She meets Rose's brother Hans and sister Susanna. Learning that Rose has passed away, Hans and Susanna are sad. They take Jess in and arrange for her to stay at home. Because they are similar in age, Jess and Susanna quickly become friends who talk about everything. She even drives Elroy's car to take Susanna for a ride on the farm. However, just as they are having fun, the broadcast of a baseball game suddenly comes from the radio. But the broadcast is only for a moment. It is soon cut off by the town's broadcast. Hearing Mayor Joshua's voice coming from the radio again, Jess suddenly remembers something. She seems to have not heard any notices from the military for a long time. All news in the town is verbally relayed by Mayor Joshua. Residents cannot hear other broadcasts at all. At first, Jess thought Mayor Joshua did this specifically to comfort the residents, but wouldn't broadcasting the authorities' notices directly comfort everyone more? Is Mayor Joshua trying to hide something? The more Jess thought about it, the more something felt off, so she left the farm and set out for the radio station to investigate. However, just as they arrive at an intersection, they suddenly encounter Kara and others out on patrol. After modification, Kara and the others can already move during the day, but they need to wrap up tightly so the worms inside won't feel the sunlight. Alice pretends to interrogate, taking the opportunity to approach Jess. Just as Jess speaks, Alice drags her out, wanting to take the opportunity to infect Jess. Discovering that the driver is Jess, Kara wants to get out of the car to help, but is stopped by another person in the car. Just as the two are fighting, Susanna suddenly pulls out 2 sickles from somewhere and hits Alice directly. Alice touches the sun, and the worms inside her instantly surge out. However, seeing Alice being taken out, the companions in the car not only do not get out to help, but slam the steering wheel and step on the gas to leave the scene. Although Kara is wrapped tightly, Jess still recognizes Kara's voice from the shouting, but she doesn't chase. Instead, she turns to find a way to save Alice. Although exposed to the sun, Alice still has a breath left. They move Alice to the car. To thank Jess for saving her, Alice tells her about the church. Learning that Mayor Joshua actually wants to control all residents, Jess feels they cannot sit still and wait for death. She and Susanna discuss preparing to destroy the radio station. Because of the impulse in the afternoon, Kara is blamed by Mayor Joshua. However, seeing through the hypocrisy of Mayor Joshua, Kara completely saw what kind of person he really was and suddenly shoved the mayor's head into the toilet. After getting rid of Mayor Joshua, Kara takes over the radio station. But just as she is about to broadcast, Jess and Susanna arrive just in time. They fight in the station. However, Jess is no match for Kara and gets pinned onto the mayor's corpse. Just as Jess is about to suffocate, she touches a brick. She backhands it and smashes Kara down directly. However, just as she is about to finish Kara, Jess stops her hand movements, then walks to the switch. Jess destroys the power supply to the radio station so residents can hear other channels' broadcasts. However, upon leaving the station, Jess feels dizzy. It turns out that in the fight just now, she was infected by parasites from the mayor's corpse. Jess doesn't want to drag Susanna down. She leaves the car preparing to wait for the sun. But Susanna cannot bear to see Jess die like this. She takes a blanket from the car and covers Jess. This is the entire content of the latest 2025 thriller movie Wormtown. If you enjoy films like this, you might want to check out the original movie. That's all for today. See you next time.